In the Money Media, way too early top 10 video. PTF and Mikee P back with you. JK will be on another video very soon for us. Also need to shout out our man behind the scenes, Eric Decoster. He does great writing for us over at inthemoneypodcast.com, and he is the man when it comes to compiling Derby top 10 lists. He's been doing it for 10 years. By my calculations, that makes him like 11 when he was starting out doing these. Always great to have him on, whether it's podcasts or videos. Today, Mikee P and I are going to go through this way too early top 10, and we start off with a horse called Sandman, Mike. This is a Mark Casse trainee, ran behind Sovereignty in the street sense, had an easy allowance win when last seen on the track. You think this one is a serious Triple Crown contender?
I love the Casse barn. I do think that he is very sharp with his young horses. This horse is definitely improving. If you look at Mystic Dan last year, he was racing in allowance races around this time. So it took him a while to, get into himself. I do think that these young horses that are on the improve, especially going 2 turns, are horses that you need to pay attention to. So Sandman on the radar on that Oaklawn trail for Casse.
Clocking in at number 9, we've got Keep It Easy. This one, Dale Roman's trainee. As I said when we did a podcast about this list a couple of weeks ago, the Triple Crown Trail, always better when Dale Romans is on it, even if he's half the man he used to be. I mean that just literally, if you've seen him lately. What do you think of Keep It Easy's chances?
Keep It Easy. We have to see what happens when this one stretches out. If you remember Jess Steele from last year, he won the Ed Brown Stakes at Churchill Downs. He was a player on the Triple Crown Trail, so definitely improving. A huge blowout win in the Ed Brown. I do think that this horse bears some watching. Probably ends up in Florida for the winner.
Next one I want to mention is one that I also had on my top 10 list, but I thought I was being a little cheeky putting this one there. But Eric agrees with me, so that made me feel like I had the right answer. This one had Derby buzz from the first start in Saratoga. Ferocious. He hasn't quite lived up to that hype. He's run the same speed figure on the buyer scale now 3 times in a row. One of many who I think it's fair to say was decidedly up against the flow of things in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Are Eric and I overrating Ferocious, or does he belong on the way too early Derby top 10?
I think he's perfect for the way too early Derby top 10. This horse has had tons of hype, especially coming off that huge maiden score at Saratoga. I just don't think he's figured it out yet. Certainly talent is there. He needs to figure it out. There's talk of maybe giving this horse blinkers. Definitely, if this horse can put it all together, I do think we'll end up on plenty of Derby lists.
One that almost has to be on the list is your presumptive 2-year-old champion, that Citizen Bull. I've been extremely critical of what I think is going to be the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, not in terms of critical, like I don't think the horses are any good. I think there's a lot of good horses. I just think it was not a truly run race with East Avenue not breaking well. Citizen Bull took advantage, got the win. I put him on my list. I think I just put him in at like number 10. Eric, a little bit more bullish, if you'll pardon the pun. Citizen Bull, is he the real deal, or is he a horse you're going to look back and, it was all about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and you're skeptical about how he's going to train on, as I am?
I was higher on this horse in the fall than most of the ITM people were. I do think that Baffert has this horse going in the right direction. I do think the 2 turns is what this horse wants to do. And he was able to dictate that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So whenever he's able to do that and get his trip, he has plenty of talent. And it's hard to argue with the fact that he beat the best whenever the money was on the line. So I think that Citizen Bull belongs on this list. I do think that you can be skeptical of the juvenile, but for now, let's see what happens heading to 3 years old.
You'd think he will be showing up again in Southern California. We'll talk a little bit more about Southern California Santa Anita opening day this week, and going to be continuing, obviously, all throughout the winter and spring. We'll hear from them in a minute, but one more horse to talk about. First, this one, just a maiden winner, but a maiden winner with a pretty nice accolade. He's run the fastest figure of his generation with that 98 in the visually awesome maiden run at Churchill. Brad Cox, so active with these 3-year-olds coming up, these rising 3-year-olds, whether it's the fillies or the colts. Where would Patch Adams be on your list? I had him even higher than Eric did here at number 6.
Yeah, I do think that this horse is a serious horse heading to 3 years old. Blowout maiden special weight winner at Churchill there on that Stars of Tomorrow card. Hard to argue with the numbers, and he was very visually impressive. Also, this horse, I'm very intrigued with what happens when he steps into stakes company. He's obviously in the right hands, so Patch Adams, I think, needs to be at the top. I would have him in the top three.
Okay, that's how I saw it too. That makes me feel good that we're in lockstep as far as this one goes. Santa Anita opening day is this Thursday. If you're watching this video right away, great stuff happening. 6 stakes races, all graded stakes. Going to be a lot of fun. Some real equine star power on display. The return of the $2 pick 6, that's continuing. Great opportunity for horse players there with these 6 graded stakes races. Also, the all turf pick 3, which they've had now for a minute in California, but we haven't talked about it that much in the previous couple of seasons because it's been at the old takeout. Now, 15% takeout. Also, some terrific 15% takeout wagers happening late in the card with the late double and the late pick 3. Terrific opportunities at Santa Anita all meet long, not just on opening day, throughout this winter spring meet. Mike, you've been a horse player for a couple of decades. What does Santa Anita opening day mean to you?
I do. It's Christmas for horse players. Every year, that December 26th, I need to get out there because it is just it's anything that I look forward to over the Christmas holiday. It's that opening day at Santa Anita, and the big horses show up. Gotta love that Malibu there, going 7 furlongs. And Mystic Dan comes back in the Malibu. He's the first Derby winner to show up in the Malibu since Silver Charm back in 1997. So Silver Charm wasn't successful in that Malibu. He ended up second that day. But just Santa Anita right now, too, is very horse player friendly. You have those larger minimum wagers. Yeah, $3 pick 3, those last 3 races, $5 double. Those are lending themselves to huge payouts. So horse player friendly, low takeout bets. Jump into Santa Anita there on opening day and all meet long. I do think it's, for California racing, the best product going.
Let's talk about journalism. Number 5 on Eric Decoster's top 10, way too early, top 10 Derby list. This one had the impressive win at Los Alamitos, turning over a couple of well-fancied Baffert runners, ran a rock-solid speed figure. Michael McCarthy, one of our favorite trainers over here at In the Money Media. He's been a guest on our shows many times and does such a great job. Just the littlest bit under the radar of those, tippity top trainers we talk about all the time on Derby preview shows, etc. How much do you think journalism has in terms of a scope for improvement?
I'm a huge McCarthy fan. Anything that he throws out on the track, I'm very interested in. This horse was a sharp maiden winner, and that very much caught my eye. Wasn't expected to win, had a couple Bafferts in his maiden race, and was able to run them down late, then jumped right back into Los Futurity and was able to win that race from off the pace. So this horse is definitely improving in the right hands and is going to be very interesting, especially on that California trail moving forward. From off the pace, horses that can rate and finish, you want, I think, going longer on this Derby trail. So I think is going to improve, is going to make some noise here this spring.
Speaking of trainers who we are often talking about on the show and the right hands to be in terms of looking for a goal a few months out and getting a horse there in top form, let's talk about Sovereignty. Spoiler alert, on my first Derby top 10 list, I actually had this one in the top spot. So impressive was he in the street sense. Where are you? Would he be a top 5 contender for you for the Derby? And do you think he's got a legit shot?
He would be, and when we previewed that race, and we did on a one YouTube video, we liked this one in that spot. Well, watch that replay. I mean, as visually impressive as it gets, coming down the middle of the track there, going a flat mile at Churchill Downs. He obviously loves the surface. I do think that this horse is improving, and was against it in a couple of his races in New York prior to showing up at Churchill. So I think the sky's the limit on this one. This one would be a top 3 contender for the Derby right now for me.
Excellent. Glad to see you and I rowing in together once again. Next up, horse so impressive in the first 2 runs. The disappointment of the Breeders' Cup, maybe in all divisions. East Avenue just kind of fell out of there. Obviously didn't show his form. Are you willing to forgive that effort and put him high up on a Derby list?
I think you can forgive the effort, considering his blowout wins at 2. But he's a speed type, and it seemed to show that okay, he needs to get his trip to be effective. Now that was a tough spot for a 2-year-old there, especially when you don't break well from the rail in the juvenile. You can't throw that race out. We'll see how he moves forward. The talent is there, but a horse that really needs things to go his way to produce his best. I mean, we saw what happened to Ferocious last year, so reason to be skeptical.
Not Ferocious. Who were you thinking of?
Or I'm sorry, Fierceness. See, everybody
Fierce.
mixes
Oh
that
yeah,
up.
Fierceness. How did I forget him? I
Everybody
went on a
mixes
little
that
mental
up.
detour there. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other podcast. We'll get there at some point. But next up on the list, a horse that I think a lot of people are skeptical about at this point, but Eric and I both still very bullish about Chancer McPatrick, one who I think was a victim of that pace. I think a lot of folks are thinking, is he going to eventually be better? Maybe going one turn in races with setups. I still think he has the chance to be an elite late pace horse, not unlike last year's Derby second. Sierra Leone gives me a little bit of vibes in that direction. Are you with us with Chancer McPatrick, or like a lot of the other people I've seen and heard online?
For me, I do think that he could be better suited to one turn. He's going to have to prove that 2-turn test to me. Obvious talent, has a huge late move, but went 2 turns in the juvenile and wasn't nearly as effective. So we'll see what happens with that one. May ultimately be best at that elongated sprint distance, but the talent is there and plenty of chances to prove himself headed towards the Derby.
Number 1 on Eric's list. This one surprised me. I had this horse on the radar, didn't have him in my first top 10. Eric's enthusiasm alone makes me think maybe I should get on board with Bullard. This is another one from the barn of Michael McCarthy, son of gunrunner from a good female family. And I mean, nobody can argue about the upside. Undefeated, won the first stakes race by almost 5. I just wanted to see a little more before pushing him quite up into my top 10, but certainly an interesting candidate to move forward as the calendar is about to turn here. Where are you with Bullard?
I like him, but I wouldn't have him quite this high on the list. 2 really nice wins so far, and obviously I love McCarthy, but I do think that this horse maybe needs to prove it going forward against tougher ones. He had some setups in his races. I do think he's interesting. The upside is there, but I wouldn't have him quite this high.
Do you have any others we didn't talk about, Mike, that you might want to put forward as potential top 10 type horses? Or do you have a pick of these 10 from Eric to close things out here today?
So if you watched the video from last week and the gun runner that we did, the horse that I liked in that race, Built, was a huge blowout winner there, able to get the front and just go away. I do think that that one has plenty of talent. I love that race there. Visually impressive, very speedy. So I do think Built belongs on this list. I even asked Eric, I said, Eric, where is Built on this list? And he needs to be higher. So Built for me to crack the top 10.
I was a little surprised. We gave him that chance to revise it after the gun runner, and he said, nope, I'm good. Again, he's been doing this in terms of making lists longer than us, as we're comparative grizzled veterans next to him. That was interesting to see. I'm not surprised you mentioned him. That was a terrific pick, and you ended up getting a good price. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money YouTube channel. We're giving out tips on weekend races throughout the season, and we'll be back with more Derby top 10s for Mikey P. I'm PTF. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel.